Studios here in Accra and around the world, this is Joy News, independent, fearless and credible. My name is Elton Gobe and always a pleasure to have you here on the pulse. For this Thursday, 17th April 2025, we are live on DSTV channel 421, Go TV 125. We are on X Spaces, on Facebook, on YouTube, and of course, on myjoyonline.com. Coming up this afternoon, Economic and Organized Crime Office makes a significant breakthrough this afternoon, busting a Nigerian suspect involved in child trafficking in Ghana and across West Africa sub-region. We are live at the ECOWAS head office for the very latest on this breaking story this afternoon. Also, with less than 20 days left on his 120-day social contract and only 32% of his promises fulfilled, is President Mahama running out of time to deliver? Of course, we will dig deeper into his performance for the first 100 days, plus updates on what to expect for the next 20 days. Also, President Mahama pushes for regional integration gains momentum as he called Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso to the launch of ECOWAS Golden Jubilee as time is fast running out for the bloc to retain the junta-led countries.
You do know that because of the divorce from ECOWAS, it requires the host president to be solely responsible for that invitation. So they will come as hosts of the Ghanaian president.
So what could President Mahama's move mean for economic future and Ghana's ties with the AES? We will break it down here on the pulse. We'll also explore the implications of this latest move. And in our Breaking the Fire Cycle series, we turn to the Upper East region, where growing concerns over fire safety in Bolgatanga's old and new markets have left traders on the edge.
It's not right for us to light fires anywhere at all within the market, but some do that. If the wind blows and ignites a fire during the night when no one is here, you can imagine what would happen.
And of course, in just a few hours to the Easter celebrations, we'll be live in Kwahu ahead of all the excitement. Of course, also here in the Greater Accra region, it is Joy at the Mall, and in Kumasi is the Love FM family party in the park. We've got every aspect of it covered for you this afternoon here on the pulse. My name is Elton Gobe. When we come back, we'll settle for the details. Stay put. Welcome back, and of course, get interactive with us. We are on X Spaces, on Facebook, on YouTube, and of course, on myjoyonline.com. This afternoon, we'll be taking you live to the ECOWAS headquarters, where a kingpin in the child trafficking business has been busted, a Nigerian for that matter. We've got details coming your way pretty soon from the ECOWAS head office as we begin to understand more on this particular matter. We have our cameras there, and soon we'll take you live. But before we do that, as the dry season deepens, water scarcity is biting hard across northern region, turning access to clean water into a daily battle for many residents. Now, in Tamale, surrounding communities, the situation has worsened. Long queues at boreholes, erratic supply, and growing frustration are now part of everyday life. So what does it mean when water becomes a luxury? Joy News has visited some of the hardest hit areas to witness the reality on the ground and hear directly from those affected.
Under the scorching sun, the once thriving water bodies of the region have shriveled up, leaving residents parched and desperate. The dry season, a recurring nightmare for this region, has turned access to clean water into a luxury only a few privileged can afford. Many communities depend on dam water, whilst a few depend on the Ghana Water Company for their needs. However, the erratic supply from the Ghana Water Company has made it difficult for people to access water constantly. We hit the streets of Tamale to speak to some residents.
If the dam was dredged, it would have been better because the taps are not flowing in this area and it is affecting our daily lives. We have been here since morning and still no water for us. Our kids are not able to go to school because of water scarcity in the area. We are not the only people affected by this. Koblemagu, Kalpwahini, Nyanshegu, and Gumani are areas that are affected by this water scarcity.
Even the young lady, even if you are in your month, even you are in your period, you can't even get water to bath. And like the taps are locked, the tap is locked, and the tap is also dry. So even if you are getting your period in your your month and you're getting your period, you don't get water to bath. You even go to school and come back and still come and search for water everywhere. You will not even get water. As for me, I was washing yesterday because of the washing and there's no water. I was not able to wash my things, and I'm still sitting down here to get water and go home and go and finish my things.
The tap doesn't flow, so we find it very difficult to get potable drinking water. We usually trek to our neighboring communities in search of water, which we sometimes do not even get. Our children no longer go to school because we don't have water to wash their clothes. We are really suffering.
I am compelled to abandon my work and search for water for my family. This is too hard for us, so the government should come to our aid. At least, even if it demands that they supply us with water for some time, at least, it will be appreciated. They should come to our aid.
The Ghana Water Company said it is faced with significant challenges in meeting its mandate to supply water due to outdated equipment and other challenges. The regional water quality manager, Suleiman Al-Hassan, speaks.
The plant is not able to provide adequate quantities because the plant was designed to provide a total volume of 45,000 cubic meters a day. If you go to Dalong, we have two treatment systems. One, we call it the old system, that is supposed to provide 80 million gallons of treated water a day. Then the other one that we call the new treatment plant is supposed to add 26,000 cubic meters a day. So if you lump the two together, we are looking at not less than 45,000 cubic meters a day. That is the design capacity of the entire Dalong treatment plant. Unfortunately, the plant is not able to even meet the design capacity because of obsolete equipment, aged pipe pumps, and other challenges. But the main ones are the fact that the pumps are very weak. They cannot operate for 1 week without getting, downtime. They easily break down because of age. At Naouni, we are supposed to operate 4 pumps, ideally 3 on duty, 1 on standby. But as we speak, we only manage all the 3 at the same time. And all the 3, we cannot have smooth production or operation of all the 3 for continuously for a week.
Said to address this reoccurring nightmare, there is the need for new infrastructure to address the water crisis.
Before we can think of long-term solution that can be enough or that can bring enough water to Tamale, we should be able to put Dalong back to its original installed capacity. And to be able to do that, we need 2 raw water pumps at Naouni and then 2 treated water pumps at Dalong. If we are able to do that, we can get the 45,000. Then we roll out effective treatment rationing water program. Then we manage it as we await the new projects that government is planning to embark on at Yape. In fact, let me quickly touch on that one. That one is our panacea to the Tamale water challenge, because it's 3 times that of Dalon.
All right, we're still keeping an eye on the Uoko matter, and we'll take you live there when everything is set and ready to roll. But before we do that, President John Mahama has again extended an olive branch to the military leaders of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, inviting them to Accra as ECOWAS prepares for an extraordinary summit next week. The meeting, bringing together foreign and finance ministers from across the region, aims to tackle concerns over the recent withdrawal of the 3 Sahelian nations to form the Alliance of Sahel States. Their exit has sparked fears of major socio-economic fallout for coastal nations like Ghana, which depends on these landlocked neighbors for key agricultural input, especially vegetables. Now, at the news briefing launching ECOWAS 50th anniversary celebration, Foreign Affairs Minister Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa confirmed President Mahama's formal invitation to the military leaders.
I did indicate all ECOWAS heads of state have been invited for this event, including heads of state of the AES countries. You do know that because of the divorce from ECOWAS, it requires the host president to be solely responsible for that invitation. So they will come as hosts of the Ghanaian president because of, I did indicate all ECOWAS heads of state have been invited for this event, including heads of state of the AES countries. You do know that because of the divorce from ECOWAS, it requires the host president to be solely responsible for that invitation. So they will come as hosts of the Ghanaian president because of the divorce. But in the spirit of goodwill and seeking to foster reunification, which we hope that will be achieved in the shortest possible time, all sides. When President Mahama discussed with his colleagues that he wanted to invite the AES heads of state, he did not face any opposition or resistance, which is really a good sign that there is that genuine commitment and desire for ECOWAS to be fully reintegrated. And those of you who followed President Mahama's state visits to these AES countries, you recall that they did indicate that if ECOWAS will recognize their bloc, the AES bloc, and will not mind inviting them as a bloc, not as individual countries, then they were open to the idea. So President Mahama has briefed the chair of ECOWAS, President Tinubu, as you do know, following his shuttle diplomacy. And President Tinubu has said that at the next ECOWAS Heads of State Summit, President Mahama will be given the floor to present a detailed report of his engagements so that some of these considerations and the concessions, which I imagine will be discussed by heads of state. You need also to recall that during this launch, there will be the extraordinary meeting of ministers to discuss this same matter, and a report will be presented to the heads of state. So you can see a flurry of efforts to get our good neighbors to return to the fold, even if they will return under a different guise, under a different format. What is important is that we are so interlinked, we are so intertwined, we are one people, we have common ethnic groups, a common culture, common heritage. There's so much that that binds us together, than those artificial boundaries, as you know, which were boundaries not created by us. So we are very confident that we will see a reunited ECOWAS.
Well, questions are emerging about President Mahama's continued engagement with the military rulers of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, and whether or not this engagement will help bring them back to the ECOWAS fold. And we'll have that details coming your way pretty shortly as we look to explore the dangers therein if these negotiations should continue to happen here on the Pulse on Joy News. Let's take a short break and return with more on the program. Well, let's still stay with the ECOWAS story because questions are emerging about President Mahama's continued engagement with the military rulers of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, especially in the light of their former withdrawal from ECOWAS and the creation of their own confederation, the Alliance of Sahel States. Now, despite the political tension, President Mahama has sent yet another invitation for the leaders to join an upcoming ECOWAS meeting here in Accra. We also understand that ECOWAS has insisted it hasn't closed its doors to these countries. What is the reasoning behind this position?
After 50 years of existence, the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, is currently grappling with disintegration, the latest being the exit of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger to form the new Alliance of Sahelian States, AES. These developments and many others have prompted a high-level dialogue convened by the West African Network for Peace Building, WANEP, which is attempting to unpack the contemporary geopolitical dynamics while recommending solutions.
The geopolitics of West Africa is changing. France is no longer what it used to be in this neighborhood. France is being asked to leave. At least French soldiers are leaving. How can we turn this moment to our advantage? And how can we take care of what I will call our own family problems? Because at the end of the day, we are family.
Also alarmed at the fragmentation taking place in West Africa is the Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security at the ECOWAS Commission, Ambassador Abdel Fattah Musa, who's worried the situation may renew the cycle of dependency on foreign powers.
The whole issue of the dependency syndrome, because today, when we are talking about the differences between ECOWAS and others, you chase France out, then you welcome Russia, and then, others. And I must tell you that ECOWAS never closed the door to collaboration on security and humanitarian matters with the Sahelian state. Up until they left, they were participating in the Accra initiative, which was based here. ECOWAS always invited them to this meeting. I must confess that the Sahelian countries, since about 2007, have been very reticent in collaboration with the rest of the region. In 2007, ECOWAS wanted to develop a Sahel strategy, and it faced fierce opposition from the countries in the Sahel, led by Algeria and a few of them. That ended. When the G5 Sahel was created, the application by other members of the community to join were rebuffed by them, and there was very little collaboration between G5 Sahel and ECOWAS, at the time. So the trajectory that the AES has taken is not very surprising. I hope that it will be reversed, but that is the reality on the ground as far as collaboration with them is concerned.
Well, let's do some analysis on this matter. And joining us, Dr. Festus Aubin. He's a regional coordinator, research and capacity building. Also joining us on the telephone is Charles Oredu. He is a former deputy foreign affairs minister and member of parliament as well. So let me start with you first. Honorable Charles Oredu, you think this is a good move that governments under President Mahama is courting the attention of these three countries? Is this something that really is of necessity to Ghana's security?
Yeah, thank you, Elton, for the opportunity. I think that by and large, it's a good thing if the three countries that did broke away are courted, to return to our fold. But then I have issues when I hear the foreign minister talk about the success of this shuttle diplomacy that was engaged by His Excellency President Mahama. You recall that prior to President Mahama visiting these three countries, being Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, he did visit Togo, where he engaged in some bilaterals with the Togolese president, and then subsequently traveled to these three countries. Immediately after he had completed his visit, these three countries, Togo announced that they were also planning to join this alliance of Sahelian states. So Togo succeeded in just throwing a spanner in the works of the president. So I don't know what kind of report the president gave the chairman of the union, being the Nigerian president, President Tinubu. But I think that he's not been successful in this. Probably this is an opportunity to re-engage, an opportunity to still get the three countries, to get back on the table, and then see if we can get them back on the union, back to join the union, and in the long run get them to establish democracy and then multi-party democracy in their country. But then the organization itself, ECOWAS, I think that the ECOWAS is done well. If you look at how it was set up, what it sought to achieve, we can easily talk about the free movement of goods, services, free movement of persons.
Right.
Now within the community, we can travel without a visa, to Nigeria, any of the other countries, and then also trade, with the establishment of the ETLS. Now goods of origin are traced to the extent that taxes and then custom duties are waived. I think that's been something that the ECOWAS as a union can boast of. It can also talk about the intervention, during the crisis in Sierra Leone, Liberia, and then Guinea, during the wars, during this conflict, through ECOMOC. I think ECOWAS did put up, this standby force that was instrumental in quelling whatever uprising or whatever conflict that was engulfing these countries. But then the challenge has been there. The challenges are there. The single currency is outstanding, ECO. The convergence criteria, for example, Ghana, the last read, when the Minister for Finance presented his budget to Parliament, did say that Ghana has met 2 out of the 4 convergence criteria.
Right.
And that's always been the case. It's always succeeded in meeting 2 out of the 4. You can also talk about what ECOWAS is facing now with issues of terrorism, across the sub-region, where jihadists are ramping up, going around trying to cause mayhem, in countries that they are operating. So by and large, if countries like these three that are very, very strategic, bear in mind that Ghana do have a very strategic relationship with Burkina Faso because they are a neighbor.
Right.
Mali, Ghana, Mali, and Osadefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, we did have a very special relationship with Mali. And then Niger, there are a lot of Nigerians in Ghana, doing business and then whatnot. So if the desire is to bring them back, that's fine. But I don't know how successful the president is being in achieving that as of yet.
All right. Please hold it for me. Let me bring in Festus Orbin with ONEP. So, Festus, why? I mean, try and get us to understand why is President Mahama bent on getting these countries back to ECOWAS? Is it because of Ghana's proximity to Mali and Burkina Faso, for example? And if you can unmute for me.
Yeah.
Great. We can hear you now.
Yes. Thank you very much. And greetings to the former deputy minister, and also to your view. Yes, I think we need to understand the context within which the engagement of President Mahama is being conducted. if you recall, these three countries have a lot of trust issues with ECOWAS as a regional. And technically, they are also out of ECOWAS. If you look at the 1993 ECOWAS treaty. And so now there are calls for more bilateral and multilateral, engagement. Because at the multilateral level, ECOWAS appointed the president of Senegal and also Togo, President Faure Gnassingbé, to lead its mediation efforts, but we haven't achieved much progress on that front. And when President Mahama was elected as the president of Ghana, we've seen the kind of engagement he's had with these three countries. And across the region, he's one of the personalities that ECOWAS, can use in terms of persuading these three countries to come back to ECOWAS. And so his engagement is quite key. It's part of the conciliatory and pragmatic approach being adopted by ECOWAS and also 8 member states to try as much as possible to bring these three countries back to ECOWAS fold. You will also recall that these three countries have been part of ECOWAS for almost 48, 49 years.
Right.
And only fair that if we are celebrating 50 years of ECOWAS, they are part of that celebration, either as guests, because technically they are out of ECOWAS. So President Mahama's invitation is quite significant. It's an opportunity, for us to demonstrate to these three countries that they need to be part of ECOWAS because, like the former deputy minister said, we are, brothers, we are neighbors, we are intertwined culturally, economically, politically. And so it's important that despite the fact that they are out of ECOWAS, we continue to extend invitations to them to some of these events to ensure that we continue to engage them to come back to the original body.
But you also do know that they, in ECOWAS' attempt to get them back into the fold, they put forth some conditions, and then later on they decided to be on their own. Now, any talks of getting them back into ECOWAS, and ECOWAS has made it clear that you cannot be a military ruler and then find ways to turn yourself into a civilian ruler. If you are a military ruler, you must completely stay away from the politics of that country. They have their own conditions. Is it possible for the two, ECOWAS and of course these three countries, to meet at a point where there can be compromises? That is, if the two bodies need each other, to allow for that kind of coordination and cohesion that is expected within the sub-region.
Yeah, I think that, from where we sit now, practically, it will be very difficult for these three to come back to ECOWAS. What the focus has been is to look at what kind of engagement we can have with these three countries, because if you take in the area of economic, in the area of security, humanitarian, we are still interlinked with them. And how do we ensure that we continue to collaborate with them to be able to deal with some of these common challenges that confront the Sahel and also those of us in the rest of the ECOWAS countries. And so the focus is more about how we can continue to have some kind of engagement with these three countries, because we cannot completely wean ourselves from them. They can also not completely wean themselves from us. And regarding the conditions, it is clear in the ECOWAS protocol, if you are a military leader, you stage a coup, you cannot contest the next election.
Right.
And this is one of the important questions that ECOWAS will have to deal with, whether they want to take the pragmatic approach of allowing them, if they want to contest, whether they will allow them to contest, it's up to the ECOWAS heads of state to take those decisions. They also raise issues about the foreign influence in ECOWAS, especially France influence in ECOWAS, which I think we have also not demonstrated much to them, that we have, ECOWAS has won itself from these foreign interferences. So at some point, we need to look beyond just getting them back to ECOWAS, because if you go to these three countries, even their citizens, some of them are questioning the value that ECOWAS brings to them. And I think it is time that ECOWAS demonstrate the value it has for these three countries to be able to also win the citizens and also these leaders back onto its fold, or have a relationship that is a win-win relationship for ECOWAS and these three countries.
All right, let me bring in the former Deputy Foreign Affairs Minister, Mr. Charles Oweri. So, Mr. Oweri, I remember ECOWAS under the leadership of President Akufo-Addo, and I remember the meeting that took place at the Peduase Lodge where the military regime then from Mali, they came in. I remember all the timelines that were given by ECOWAS to get them to return their various countries into constitutional rule. It didn't materialize. Now they are going on with their lives outside the control of ECOWAS. In 2025, as we see today, is it still possible to get them back into the fold? Or you will say that dialogue and negotiation is now difficult to achieve?
Yeah, Elton, the doors of ECOWAS should be opened for them at any time if they may want to return to constitutional rule. ECOWAS should be happy to receive them. But then if they've decided, like they have now, to go their way and form this alliance, and now you have Togo that's also threatening to also join them, then let's have a relationship like what the UK has with the EU. UK is no longer they no longer a member of the EU,
right?
But then they have certain arrangements in terms of trade where they are still able to take advantage of their trade protocols and whatnot, export, import without duties and then customs, and so we can have a similar arrangement. They don't necessarily have to be part of the political architecture. No, they don't. But then let's have, at the end of the day, the ordinary citizens of these three countries and then the other 12 ECOWAS countries should benefit.
Right.
We shouldn't feel the failed rapprochement between these leaders and then that of the leaders of the ECOWAS. So I would push for an arrangement where we can still have a trade engagement. Let's still, take advantage of the ETLS, still move goods, still move services, between our borders without duties, and then let the impact be felt by the citizenry, so that once we decide that we are cutting links totally with them, cutting them, and then not even getting them back, that's going to be at a disadvantage of the ordinary citizen. So if you ask me, I think that let's now move on. They've moved on. They've formed an alliance. Now they're having another country join them, being Togo. Let's also move on. But then let's have a very special trade relationship so that the indigents, the individual citizens, benefit from these arrangements.
And then finally, for you as a former governor appointee, what kind of relationship do you propose to resist between Ghana and some of these landlord countries that rely on our port for their imports, their imports from anywhere, and of course Ghana also relying on them for some imports as well? What kind of relationship should exist between Ghana and these countries, even as we have at the back of our minds the ECOWAS protocol in terms of dealing with members that are not part of the committee?
Yes, that's why I did suggest earlier that let's have a trade arrangement between these countries. Because apart from ECOWAS, remember, they are also members of the AU.
Right.
That they're also going to benefit from the ACTA. you get it. So let's have a trade relationship. That's why I cited that of the UK and then the EU. They are not part of the EU. But when it comes to trade, they still have some common tariffs. They still have some common trade businesses that these two main entities do enjoy. So I still would want to keep that relationship that we have with them. Burkina Faso is our neighbor. Look at what is happening in Burkina Faso, in Boko, for example. Look at what is happening there. It's likely that people are moving in to and fro, between Boko and the neighboring towns in Burkina Faso. So it's very, very typical that an arrangement is made so that we don't totally cut them off. Just that my issue was, I don't know how successful the president is being, with the shuttle diplomacy that he engaged recently. They've decided to move. And then once they've gone ahead with this union, we should craft a loose arrangement that can serve the purpose of the two main groups,
right,
and them, still doing businesses, and then people enjoying the skills of whatever businesses that we decide to do together.
All right, let's leave it here for now. Thank you so much. Charles Oredu is a former Deputy Foreign Affairs Minister, and of course also had Dr. Festus Oben with WANEP. Now, let's do some politics now as we await that formal communication from Yoko on this child trafficking bust. Now, as part of his campaign ahead of the 2024 general elections, President Mahama committed to what he described as a 120-day social contract with the people of Ghana, a bold pledge to implement a set of key policy actions within the first 4 months of assuming office. Now, among the headline promises were the abolition of several controversial taxes, including the e-levy, COVID-19 health levy, the betting tax, and the recently introduced emission levy. Now, with 100 days gone, Joy News Research Desk has conducted an assessment of the progress made so far. Out of the 25 policy commitments outlined in the social contract, 8 have been fully implemented, 9 are currently in progress, 8 are yet to be initiated. And we've got this graphics to illustrate the point. So we are in 101 days for the new administration and progress on Mahama's 120-day contract. So the headlines are brought to you, 8 and 9 in progress, 8 not started at all. He promised a national dialogue on education and economy is done. No fee for first year and free tertiary education for people with disability, not fully rolled out. E-levy gone, betting gone, emission taxes scrapped. COVID-19 still on the books. Allocation for Women's Development Bank. There's a budgetary allocation. Work has yet to start on it. Actualization. So these are some of the outstanding issues. COVID-19 levy yet to be fully scrapped. Ban political appointees from purchasing state access. Well, the wording is out there. Code of conduct for government officials yet to see the light of day. Restructuring loss-making SOEs for profitability. We've heard a lamentation, but we are yet to see actual work done to see how this restructuring will take place. Streamline government's scholarship administration. The commitment has been made. The Get Fund board is in place. They hope to go to Parliament. That has not yet started. So, 68 of the promises have been fulfilled. 68% of promises to be fulfilled. And with 19 actually, not 20 days, 19 days left. Yesterday was the 100 days, so 19 days more to go to fully fulfill this social contract that he says we want to have with Ghanaians. Now, he also promised to constitute the leanest and most efficient government. According to him, it's reduced the number of ministers, and that for him constitutes a lean government. And COVID-19 yet to go. Forensic audit of financial mismanagement. There's been ORA, the report has been submitted. The Attorney General is studying it. There's been no development on the way forward as far as that matter is concerned. 24-hour economic policy. We understand that Mr. Gusitano is working on it, but we don't know in what form and shape that will take. Ban illegal and new mining activities in forest reserve. They have put together an ally in Parliament seeking to just abolish the part that says that there should be no there shouldn't be mining in forest reserve, but the bill itself is still pending. Launch the Blaster experience. We yet to see that reopen investigation into unresolved criminal cases. Some directive have gone to the CID to do so. Pro VR Akosombo and Pond Dam spillage. There's been some work on it. Compensate flood victims in Oti, Bono East and Savannah. Commitments have been made, but the fact that those affected are yet to receive that particular compensation. Right, let me bring in Richard Ahiagba of the MPP, he's a communication director. Also, Dr. Jonathan Asante Ochre, he's a senior lecturer and a political analyst at the University of Cape Coast. Mr. Richard Ahiagba, clearly the president is on track to, realizing the set of goals he said he would do in the next 120 days, with 19 more days to go.
Well, thank you, and good afternoon to you and your viewers. I will put it differently. I mean, he's not on track at all. From what he said he will do these in 120 days.
Right.
What he has done, which is minimal compared to what is outstanding, he cannot be on track at this rate. So he's off track, to put it mildly, is gravely off track. And I think that it goes to prove the point that the NDC talk, or they bit more than they can chew. And right now, they're just going to be playing with us with words and excuses until the 4 years is up. But clearly, what they have committed themselves to in 120 days, with 19 or so days outstanding, he cannot deliver on this promise. So it's a failed promise, as I can put it, is failed Ghanaians in the quest to achieve these things in 120 days. If he achieved them by 120, I'll be surprised. But I can see clearly from here, he is not able to achieve them.
No, but Richard, between me and you, he says he will nominate within 14 days the complete list of cabinet ministers for parliamentary approval. That has been done. He will constitute...
How difficult is that? How difficult is that?
But he committed to it and it's been done. So we must give him credit for that. He said he will constitute leanest and most efficient government, but that is subject to interpretation under the Fourth Republic in my first 90 days in office. According to what he's done, constitutes or fulfills that particular promise. Hold a national dialogue on education and then on the economy. He's done that. Within 90 days of office, scrap the following draconian taxes to alleviate hardship and then ease the high cost of doing business. E-levy is gone. COVID-19 is pending. Levy on betting is gone. Emission is gone. Review taxes on levies on vehicle. That has yet to be done. Commence drafting needed legal amendment and prepare implementation of 24-hour economy. That is also in the offering.
If you just hold there, what you have seen that he has done are not consequential, right? The things that are consequential in relation to the promises they made. One of the key promises on the campaign was that they're coming to restore and improve cost of living for Ghanaians, right? So if you look at this thing that we're looking at here, the number 5 that you're reading, which talks about scrapping some taxes, that number 5 is not a contentious matter, because today, if the MPP had won the election and Bawumia is the president, by now, as we speak, e-levy, COVID-19 levy, which is still on the books, betting tax, emission tax, which was not implemented, will not be there. So that's a non-starter, because both sides were going to do that anyway. But the things that he said he would do, the biggest one is 24-hour economy.
Right.
They won the election. I can argue to you, they won the election on balance based on the promise that they were going to do some 24-hour economy. They were chanting all around 1-3-3-3. Given that one job, 3 people, 3 shifts they were going to do. Where is that? We don't have that. We don't have that. It's nowhere, right? If they're going to put pen to paper and come and show us policy, this year they can't deliver because it's nothing, there's no provision for it on the budget, okay, or in the budget to actually show that they're going to implement it. So he cannot be on track. Now, he went for the low-hanging fruit, that in 14 days, I'll choose my ministers. Really, how difficult is that? right? If that is a problem, then we have a big problem. To be able to choose your ministers in 14 days, that's no news, right? To constitute an education consultation or dialogue to discuss things, bring people together. Really, what is there to be so complicated and then say that's an achievement? Nothing. But the real things that he must show leadership, those are outstanding. What happened to the banning, galamsey in forest reserves? He has completely pivoted away from the conversation, doing the very minimalist approach of amending the LI. What he promised, he has not delivered. He said he will repeal, he will ban, which means total repeal. He has not done that. He also is talking about, within 90 days, to review taxes and levies on vehicles and equipment. That has not been done. It hasn't been done. It talks about, establish an accelerated export development council, right?
Right.
What is the work on that? In 120 days. Now, this is a major consequential thing that you're going to do because this has direct impact on the economy.
Okay.
What about that? So the low-hanging fruits that anybody can do is gone grab it. And just yesterday, they hurriedly commissioned the nation coders.
Right. For me, it's a major step.
Well, a major step, where in terms of fulfilling the contract, he has not. Okay? He has not. What would have been substantial for Ghanaians is to see all of these things done, because the commitment was to get all of them done. And at this point, he's not done 50% of them.
Let me bring in, let me just allow you to hold it there for me. Can you hold it there for me? Because one key question I want to ask is why it's so difficult for leaders, political leaders, to craft a code of conduct to regulate, the conduct of political appointees. Because the MPP under President Akufo-Addo, the Attorney General told us that it was before cabinet, it never left cabinet, and so it's difficult to understand why it's difficult to come up with a code of conduct to regulate how your members or your appointees should behave. But let me bring in Dr. Richard Asante-Ochre. Doctor, some say this 32% does not reflect the actual performance because it is more quantitative than qualitative view of his performance for the 101 days so far that we've witnessed the NDC administration. Your take on this?
Mr. Mofi, thank you very much. Let me say good afternoon to your viewers. I subscribe to that. We need to look at the qualitative view instead of a quantitative view. There are some of the promises that Mr. Hiamba once said, well, how difficult is that? Yes, those things can easily be done, but the other things that come with economic consequences that will have impact on the budget of the nation, that will have impact on the revenue envelope of the country, you ought to proceed with care, to put the fundamentals in place. Here is the case that you met an economy that was quite shambolic, to say the least. An economy in which people have lost their investment bonds, an economy in which our debt portfolio has risen from 120 to 721 billion. That did not come out by magic. It came out because people were reckless, people were unbridled, people engaged in unbridled corruption. And so if you look at a situation where you are talking about accountability, that comes within the fold of that 100 or 120-day contract arrangement. You are talking about e-levy. You need to look at the financial implication of e-levy. If today, just today I sent some money, some days ago I sent some money, which I usually do when you check my account, you see I do a lot of mobile money transactions.
Right.
And by the time you say, Jack, you will see multiple effects of these deductions coming through your portal or your account.
Right.
And if somebody is not seeing that, you think that person will not consider that as having some kind of, implication qualitatively or implication economical or financially in that person's life. Of course, it will. So if you look at the young guys engaged in betting and other things, if today they are winning and that they will win and there wouldn't be any that kind of deduction, they will quantify that and see that as something having some kind of significant impact in their lives. So if you look at, for example, cutting down the number of ministers,
right,
that in itself constitutes a huge expenditure on the purse of the government or the state. And so if you take out that and you look at the effect of that reduction, that comes as a revenue to the country. If you have prevented people, for example, from not traveling on first class, which used to be the case where we had executive jet chartered here and there, that comes as a less cost to the nation. It may not be part of the 120-day contract. If you have a situation where the president reduced the allocation to the presidency, it comes as what? A revenue to the nation. So this and many other things, of course, I don't think that they'll be able to do everything within a twinkling of an eye, because you are now confronted with the reality of what your predecessor left for you. And this is how you have to go about it. Look at Constitutional Review Committee, that is very huge. If at the end of the day its implementation goes on successfully, the country will be beneficiary of that. You can talk of this educational forum. You can talk of
the economic forum.
Double track system. I mean, significantly, in terms of governance, in terms of the economy, I don't think that for now we cannot see any of the economic indicators that were left by the MPP government has seen a downturn or a negative posture with respect to the NDC government. So if you want to talk about competency, there are areas that the NDC current government has achieved some successes.
Right.
There are still many others that they will have to do. You mentioned Galamsey, but Galamsey is something that you cannot clear in a day. No. But you see the commitment on the part of the current government. It makes me happy.
But you see, but especially on that, when people say that when in opposition, if you can just allow me for just a second, on Galamsey, when the criticism is that when the party was in opposition, it was emphatic that it will, in fact, the party demanded President Akufo-Addo announce a state of emergency in Galamsey areas, water bodies and all that, and then made it clear that it was against that law, the mining law that grants access to forest areas for mining purposes, and that it was going to take the law. In fact, that was what the MPP government wanted to do before the expiration of the 8th Parliament. Now, incoming is the NDC. What they've done is that they've moved away from the declaration of a state of emergency. They've moved away from a complete withdrawal of that law, but rather is interested in amending just a line that says that mining should not take place in forest reserves. And people say that you are really not living up to what you said when you were in opposition.
You see, here is the case: the previous government might have theoretically committed because they were forced. They, in the first place, brought that particular bill into law. Now, people realize that, look, what you did is simply immoral. Now, kill that. So they tried to initiate in the dying embers of their government. So for me, that commitment was not there. They had to be pushed. Nobody has pushed this government. They decided to, amend certain portions, which I don't know why they wouldn't want to repeal it entirely. But listen to the other side. They seem to suggest that there are certain relevant portions of the bill that could easily be implemented. But if they could also take on board what civil society is saying about certain portions of the bill or the law that ought to go, then I am of the view that why don't you repeal it entirely, send a new bill, and bring those portions that you think are relevant in the protection of that. But we did not see that kind of commitment on the part of the previous government. The commitment I'm seeing with respect to the current government is that they are really fighting this menace. And we saw what happened. I didn't even know that there was a Galamsey community, whatever, in Can or something of that sort, on your network.
Yes, everyone in crime.
Then the whole community, which had over 10,000. So that commitment is there, but that commitment was absent in the previous government. So we have every reason to credit them on the fact that, well, you subscribed to the declaration of a state of emergency. Why are you not going by that? Probably the condition has changed, and maybe they are fighting it, which was not the case with the previous government, because they said that if they fight it, they are going to lose the election. We don't have any elections to conduct in this country for now. And that is why I see the entirety in terms of government. Look at the posturing of the Lands and Forestry Minister. Look at the posturing of the Environment Minister, Dr. Mutalo. Look at the posture of the EPA boss. you could see that there is that concerted effort to ensure that our environment is protected. That is not something that I saw in the previous government. So the conditions and circumstances are different.
All right. Dr. Nhaba, you have a response to Dr. Ochre?
Or like an apologist for this NDC administration than an analyst. He doesn't sound like an analyst. He goes to say that they inherited a shambolic economy. What is his measure of that? That's not an analysis. That is a judgment he's pronouncing. I found that rather laughable for an analyst to be talking in those terms. He's an apologist for this NDC government hiding under the cloak of analyst. Look, what he says, you should approach this thing with caution. If you make a promise, all right, you make a promise to your fiancé that in 120 days, I'll marry you. It's not the same as you having gone to buy her a car. If you buy her a car, it's as simple because you can afford to buy a car, but the difficult commitment of marrying her for life, you can't do it. So you have not achieved your promise. So you shouldn't come and tell us that they have done other things, and so therefore, the things they have put in this social contract, if they actually meant it, they would have prioritized this and delivered it. So it is not to do with what they have done elsewhere. We are talking about a specific document which the NDC has promised they will deliver on, which they have not. So Dr. Asante should not come and throw dust in our eyes, being an apologist for the government saying shambolic. What is shambolic about an economy that grew at 5.7%? What is shambolic about that? So please, these analysts or professionals who we should be looking up to, they cloak themselves in politics. We saw my own lecturer who was posturing as a social commentator, ended up becoming an NDC appointee. Many of them we have seen, some at tourism, some at where. So please, you should excuse us. Let's talk about the issue. The promise they made to Ghanaians, they have not delivered. They promised us they were going to do certain things in 120 days. Taking the accounts today, they haven't done them. The ones they said they would do in 90 days, they have not done. And so, for me, we should be clear in our minds and not have people apologizing or being apologists for the government when the fact of the matter is that they have not delivered. Why didn't they bring any of the NDC communicators to come here and explain to us how is it that we should accept this? Because they were on the people on the platforms, on the campaign platforms, telling us all over, telling Ghanaians on which basis Ghanaians voted. People voted on this basis. I just gave you an example of you making a promise to a woman, you marry her. And then you turn around, you take her to London for a holiday, you buy her a car, you buy her a jet. That's not what she wants. She wants marriage. Deliver that marriage, which is this contract. They have not delivered. So the NDC government, in the first 100 days, going on to the 120 days to fulfill or to end the contract that we have here in our hands, to end the days on it, they have failed. They have failed. Everything they've done so far
19 days more to go. 19 days more to go. You are certain that they will not be able to achieve the rest of the promises they've made.
Absolutely. I mean, where they can't achieve the promise on the 24-hour economy. The Women Development Bank, they have promised that they will do. They said they will provide seed money, an apology of seed money.
The seed money is in the budget.
Sorry, 51.3 is an apology, okay, of seed money. You can't establish any bank with this amount. And at this rate, it means that in the 120 days, they said they were going to fulfill this promise of establishing a bank. They have failed on that one. Okay, they have failed completely. So in a nutshell, what this document meant to the NDC was a deceptive document to get Ghanaians just to vote, to get the woman to say, yes, I would date you because you say you will marry me in 120 days.
I asked early
now
on.
The woman has agreed. Now they are saying that we have gone to do this, we have gone to do this, so accept that. She didn't want you to do any other thing apart from what you have stated in this that you would do. When you have not done this, then you have failed.
Mr. Nyaba, I asked early on about why is so difficult for you politicians to fashion out a code of conduct to regulate or to guide the conduct of appointees in government. MPP started it, it ended up at cabinet, it didn't leave cabinet. NDC says we'll do it within the first 120 days. no movement on that particular matter. Why? Why is this so difficult to do?
I'll join with you to say let's canvass strongly. If the MPP couldn't do it, and the NDC has put it here in a secret document to the people that they will do it, let's canvass for that to be done. I think that as a people, we need to hold ourselves accountable, right? The political system that we run, our politicians, to be honest with you, can't be any different from us, the citizens. So all of us must hold us accountable. The discipline in the larger country reflects in the conduct of the people we choose to lead us. So we must be honest with ourselves and deal with the matters honestly. So let's canvass, let's hold this president's feet to the fire. I think that the president, to be very honest with you, I think is well-intentioned, right? But some of the things, they've bitten more than they can chew because they desperately wanted power. So they were saying anything and everything that came to mind. And now is the time, the chicken are coming home to roost and they cannot deliver. I expect the president, when the fullness of time is due, he should come and apologize that, yes, I wanted to do it, but I failed. Which way we can forgive him? Which way he can win the sympathy of some people. But if they want to play hardball on this matter and send Dr. Asante Ochiri to come here and apologize for them, I don't think that is going to fly. This is a sacred document that they will achieve certain number of things in 120 days. They have failed. By their own standards, they have failed. And we should be clear in stating that. So on this matter of code of conduct, I agree with you. I think that we should have that. And for that, I am willing for any partnership to canvass the president to do it. It's a difficult thing. He, the president, may want to do it, but the people around in the system may frustrate that effort. I any day would give him the benefit of the doubt.
Let me allow.
Just 1 second. Let me just add for you.
And I can allow Dr. to come in.
I'll give President Mahama the benefit of the doubt any day that is well-intentioned. But this one, we must push him to make sure that he gets this code of conduct for his appointees so that we can once and for all create a certain culture in public service that will be useful and beneficial to the larger country.
Dr. Ochiri, your reaction?
Well, that is a typical politician for that matter, a national communication director of the MPP, calling me an apologist. I think that is very abusive and very insulting. And it is more or less like attacking my integrity. I want to ask, what economic indicator of the MPP that the NDC met that has had a negative implication for now? Is it the case that the NDC has increased inflationary rate? Is it the case that the debt that they inherited, which was 120 from independence, and in just 8 years we have 721? Is it the case that the exchange rate that they met at 4 and they took it to whatever? Is it the case that the inflationary rate that we saw rose up to 54 is something that the NDC has increased or what? Now, if you look at some of these indicators, and you can say that the NDC for now has not seen a negative downturn of any of these indicators, then it is very difficult to convince somebody like me that the NDC or the president has failed in terms of the 120-day promise. And I think that when you're dealing with human beings, look, in as much as you may have, a beautiful idea to implement, as you rightly pointed out, that, the president may have a good idea to implement the code of ethics, but probably those people around him, may have a word or two differently from the president.
Right.
What, for me, is a middle line. But you cannot convince me otherwise that what I'm seeing in terms of the fight against Galamsey is not happening. Right? If you look at what they have come out with, what is it, Feed Ghana. Now, if that does not become like what is it called? The other one that MPP implemented.
The Planting for Food and Jobs.
1 and 2. Planting for Food and Jobs,
right.
1 and 2. Spending over 600 million in that area, only to end up with a food inflation higher than anybody else's with inflation. So if any of these things have not seen a negative downturn, there's no way you can convince me that the president and the vice president might have failed. Look at the mess in ECG that the current government inherited. That would definitely have an impact on whether we are going to experience doomsday or not. This level of recklessness is what took us to 721. Look at national service. How people did A, B, C, and D. Probably in no time that may come up. So you see, I expect the MPP to tone down on their arrogance and pride for now. In no time, when issues of accountability begin to rise, it is then that Ghanaians will know that the consequence of being reckless and corrupt throughout the period is what took us to 721 billion. There is no other means of understanding this, that someone's debt portfolio from independence to 2016-2017 will 120 and 8 years will be 721. There's no way you can convince me to understand other than recklessness, corruption, diabolic, and I mean, people using their country as though they are doing their own personal businesses. They don't really care a hoot. And you see, when some of us, we are all taxpayers. If you look at my tax portfolio, you will appreciate that I'm a good citizen of this country. Therefore, I have every reason to say A or B. Look, somebody like Professor Boppin, someone I really respect, and I listened to his comment on the budget of the current government. And I have always been following his commentary on finance. And for the first time, we seem to have a budget that is very progressive, that did not impose taxes on the poor, but rather those who are earning more. That, for me, is progressive.
If I can just come in briefly and to ask your final question on this. Now, the president has a 4-year mandate. I mean, is 120 days enough yardstick to use to measure whether you perform or not, knowing very well that the government's mandate is a 4-year one?
Yeah, not at all. But here is the case. The government, when in opposition, said that in 120 days, we'll be able to do A, B, C, and D. So obviously, you will have his critics holding him to that account. But other than that, if you look at the general terrain and the things that they've put in place, it tells you that this government is more likely to succeed. And I can tell Mr. Hiaba that if the current government continues in the tangent that we are seeing, there is no way they will be able to win 2028. They may still stay in opposition. It may be very easy for whoever, unless maybe NDC experiences their own internal skirmishes, and that may be difficult for them to clear. If that is not there, and they have someone who will easily emerge as a leader without each cutting each other's throat, I don't see how, if they continue on that tangent, the MPP cannot in any way win 2028.
This obviously is why I don't know what we are. This obviously is why, I mean, your comments and the emphatic emphasis you place on some of the issues you raise, and Richard and hear about things that you speak more like an NDC person rather than an independent person. But you're only speaking your mind, right?
I am a taxpayer, just like him.
Let me allow him briefly. Mr. Nyagba, you've heard him. He says that everything convinces him that the NDC is on the right track. And that you had 18 years and you virtually messed up the entire nation.
Let me tell you something. To be on record, I am not one to attack people for the sake of it or I won't do that. So let me just state to Doc that I didn't attack his person. I only revealed his bias. That's all I did. His bias to the NDC, and I just exposed him for it. So that's not an attack. It is, if anybody is attacking on this program, it is him who is attacking, calling us arrogant. What we are saying is that there's a document which he is not speaking to. Dr. Autry is not speaking to the social contract. He's talking about everything else that is not in the contract. I'm saying that the contract they have given us to fulfill, right now, the minimalist 8 that they have completed, the 9 that is running, and the 8 that they have not tackled, constitute failure. And I just gave you an analogy that wraps it up to say that if you promise a woman, my fiancé, I'll marry you in 120 days, and 120 days come, you haven't married her and you have gone to buy her a car, you have not fulfilled your promise. What you told her is not to buy a car, you want to marry her. So everything else Doc is saying is being apologist of the NDC hiding behind analysts. You should just come barefaced and say, I am NDC, and speak to it. This business of hiding behind academia and talking as for politicians must stop. It's hypocrisy. It's cowardice. So he's saying to me that we are being arrogant. No, at least we are honest and we have shown our face that this is what we believe in. This thing about you're a taxpayer, how many taxpayers speaks like him? Okay, so they should come frontal and let's have a conversation, because really it's about building our country. So this thing where people are hiding around and saying things under the guise that, oh, we are being neutral, when they're actually political than the politicians themselves, must stop. And so I didn't attack him, I only exposed him to say that you are an NDC person. If that is offensive to you, I can't help it, because that's what you are behaving as. So that I just have to point it out to you. But I'm saying that they looking at this document right before us, the NDC deceived Ghanaians. And you know that everything they have done in government are low-hanging fruits that they are doing, positioning and formatting people. They have not tackled the hard issues. They said they were going to solve cost of living problems. COVID-19 levy is still on our books. It's still on our books. In fact, in the budget, they estimated to get even some 3 billion. They estimated to get more for it. So I'm saying that's consequential. Okay, why haven't they removed it?
They say it would take time. They say it would take some time because the entire VAT law might have to go to some amendment, and that is something that they've started doing.
Yes, so you see, they put in the document. I didn't put it there for them. Didn't they know? Are they suggesting to us that when they were putting in the document, they didn't know how much work will be done? That is an even bigger problem. If they want to convince us that when they were putting it in, they didn't know that it was going to take more than 120 days to do it, then that is a bigger lie. So then why did you put it in if you know you can't do it in 120 days? So the point is that where we have arrived at now, it's a judgment or a verdict issuing time for the NDC. On this document, they have failed. Quite simply, that's it. You can't say it any other way. They have failed. The only argument Doc can make in speaking for the NDC would be to say that, they have 19 days to go. If that's what he wants to say, that let the 19 days expire in the fullness of time, they would have achieved all of them, 26 of them or so, here on the paper, as I can see. If that's the argument he wants to make, I'll grant him that. And then wait for the 19 days to come, then we can do full accounting. But in the meantime, I know they cannot achieve this. They have failed and deceived Ghanaians.
The longer issue is that the government has a 4-year mandate. So is it, even though he said I will do this,
let's not even entertain.
It will do this in 120 days. Is it fair to just say that they failed when there's still more time for the government? It's not everything that the MPP promised in 8 years that they delivered.
But the document that they have here, that in 120 days they will do this. And we're just saying that, and we're not saying for that reason they should leave office, they shouldn't finish the 4 years. That's not what we're saying. We're assessing in time. There's a defined time for us, that in 100 days we'll do so and so. Is that not the case?
Right.
So in 120 days, we are looking at it and saying that what you say you're going to do in 120 days, you have failed. Okay, so everything else you said you would do in 4 years, we'll now engage that one and see what you do at the end of the 4 years. We'll render account. But I'm saying that specifically to this social contract, which is something they have done ingeniously to win votes, they have failed, which means that they lied to Ghanaians. They wanted to do this. And we were saying this thing throughout the campaign. We were telling Ghanaians that, look, this whole business about NDC talking as if we have not seen them before, because they were in power 8 years ago, right? And we saw the devastation, how they managed the economy. We saw it, okay? And then suddenly they came and portraying themselves as though that they've not been seen before, that President Mahama is some kind of new angel just dropped from heaven. Okay. We told people this. So this whole thing about 24 hours, we said it was a scam from the beginning. We said it was a scam.
Okay.
Look, I gave an example recently. Let me just land on this point for you.
Okay.
The City of London, okay, is considering implementing a 24-hour economy. Very rigorous process.
Okay.
requiring what the infrastructure will be, even before you get to the proposal. Because the city lends itself to that kind of...
Richard, I'll have to cut you here because we've got this breaking news coming in. Thank you very much. Okay. Richard Akangba is Director of Communication with the MPP. You also heard Dr. Ochre Asante, an independent analyst there. Now, let me take you to the office of ECOWAS because in the major breakthrough in the fight against human trafficking, the Economic and Organized Crime Office has this afternoon arrested over 200 Nigerian nationals suspected of running a child trafficking ring spanning Ghana and other parts of West Africa. My colleague, Kenneth Gassi, is there. I can take you live to the ECOWAS office now, and they're about to speak to the media.
And suspects. The operation was successfully, and 219 people were arrested at Kunsak Estates in Oyerifa. The suspects were lured into the country, the victims were lured into the country by the suspects ostensibly to give them lucrative jobs in Ghana. Unfortunately, when they came to Ghana, since there are no lucrative jobs existing, then they took them hostages and then they confined them at the Oyerifa estates, and then they were forced to go into cyber crimes and cyber crime related activities. A number of laptops, personal effects, internet facilities, food stuff, and other things were retrieved from them. Together with the Ghana Police Service and then the Army, they were brought to the Economic and Organized Crime Office, and then we have subjected them to some screening. The essence of the screening is to separate the victims from the suspects, to even separate the juveniles from the adults. And then we also want to know what type of criminal activities they are involved in. And whilst the screening was going on, the Nigerian High Commission visited us, and then he met with the victims and the suspects, and then he admonished them to cooperate with the office. At the moment, the screening is still going on, and then we are thinking that come what may, by tomorrow, we should be able to complete with the screening, and then bearing any unforeseen circumstances, it should be possible for us to link or maybe make arrangement to send the victims back to Nigeria to connect with their relatives. I think for purposes of the operation, the planning and everything, our counterpart with the CID, we had met at National Security, we planned together, we executed the exercise together. Indeed, going forward, the Economic and Organized Crime Office and that of the CID, we have mapped out strategies that the two of us, that is the CID and then ECOWAS, we should work more closely than before. And then this is just the beginning of one of the steps or one of the projects that we have embarked together. As we speak now, maybe Madam Lydia will talk about it. Similar operations are taking place somewhere, but we are trying to unite or join these operations together for one purpose so that we can join resources, do a thorough investigations, and then share resources to reconnect the victims with their relatives. So I will just pause so that Madam Lydia will add one or two words, and then we will send you to meet the victims, and then maybe we take it from there. Thank you so much for coming. You have to add something. No, you can go ahead. Okay. We have Ghanaians with them. But normally, when you arrest somebody and the person is maybe speaking some accent, the presumption is that the person is a Nigerian. But we are aware that there are some Ghanaians involved. There may even be some other countries or citizens involved. But at the end of the screening, we should be able to maybe de-aggregate which number is Nigerian, Ghanaians, and so forth. Exactly. Indeed, the intel we had and then the surveillance work that we did all pointed to the fact that they were engaged in cyber crimes and cyber crime related activities. But we don't also rule out the possibility of prostitution. Yes. I think we had those below or those within the ages 15, they are 15 to 38, is it right? They are 11. Okay. So those below the ages of 18 are 11, 7 females, and then 212 are males. We suspect that the suspects, so far from the screening that we have done, the suspects are about 35. I said juveniles, that is people below the age of 18, they are 11. And we suspect the suspects from the screening are numbering 35. Normally, in traffic cases, that is how it started. Nobody will volunteer him or herself to be trafficked if the motive is not going to better the person. So normally, the use of jobs, lucrative jobs, is just to facilitate or lure them or more or less to deceive them and get their consent. Indeed, during the screening and when the Nigerian High Commissioner met them, these were the complaints or issues that they raised. Many of them expressed regret, especially the juveniles. They said, a friend called me and assured me of a lucrative job in Ghana, and then I didn't tell my parents, and then I joined, and then I'm in Ghana here. They were even crying. We've separated the juveniles from the adults, so we've kept them maybe closer to ourselves, and then the majority of them are within our gardens, and then the CID, our officers, are undertaking the screening. For the victims, they are just victims of circumstance. They are just people who are in dire need of opportunities, and then they've been deceived and brought to Ghana. With respect to suspects, you know, ideally, EOCO or CID will not go into any operation if we don't suspect any offense. So there are other offenses, apart from the fact that they are engaged in cybercrime-related activities. Then trafficking of children, trafficking of whatever form is illegal in our laws or the laws of the country. So definitely, we haven't finished with the investigations. Maybe at the end of the investigations, it is possible that we may even have issues of drugs. But for now, we are just screening them. We are doing searches and so forth. The screen outcome and the search outcome combined together will now put us in a position to say crime A, B, C, Q, Y, Z is committed. I think as we speak now, we had 2 or 3 cases that AG recommended that we should prosecute, and we are prosecuting. Maybe if the head of anti-human trafficking were to be here, he will be able to tell us the stage of the prosecution. But I think the AG has been strict. The moment we send the dockets, I think 3 dockets, the response came within a week or so that we should prosecute them, and we have put them before the law court. Indeed, I think we've had a number of investigations involving Ghanaians that have been lured to Ivory Coast, and then they also find themselves in similar circumstances. We had instances, the QNet. QNet, people were also lured as if QNet is sending them to Spain or Paris, and then through the Ivory Coast side, and they ended up in Ivory Coast. We have also rescued some of Ghanaians that were in Ivory Coast for that purpose. And as we speak now, we are also investigating some other Nigerians that were also lured by QNet and other related scams or scammers into the country, and then they now subject them to all manner of inhuman treatment. As and when a matter comes to our attention, we take action. But if it is like it is still in social media, our public affairs unit, if they see that it is within our mandate or it is not one of the social media gymnastics, then they will pull it down and put it into an actionable request, and then we approve it for investigation. No. Yes. I thought Madam Lydia was going to comment on. Okay. I think what we can do is go down, and then maybe you can take one or two images of them. But because some of them are juvenile.
All right, so that's the breaking news coming from the Economic and Organized Crime Office, EOCO. The office has arrested 219 child traffickers, most of them Nigerians, and they've also rescued some children who've also been trafficked into the country to undertake what they describe as prostitution and other illegal activity. So far, 219 people involved in the trafficking, they've been arrested, awaiting prosecution in court. And so that's the breaking news coming in from EOCO. This very moment. 219 child traffickers arrested so far in a joint operation undertaken by EOCO together with the security agents. And of course, we have more coming your way on this matter, on Top Story, on News 9, and of course on Joy Newsroom. For now, let's take a short break and return with more here on The Pulse. Welcome back. This is The Pulse ahead of Easter Friday. Before we go, let me take you outside the shores of Ghana, because Germany is back on track. That's how incoming Chancellor Friedrich Merz introduced the new coalition set to govern from next month. His conservative bloc will lead with the Social Democrats as junior partners. But what does the coalition agreement say about the foreign policy, especially regarding Africa? And how are Germans reacting to their new government? For more, we turn to Thomas Sparrow, correspondent with our partners, the DW in Berlin, Germany. Thomas, what were the government's most pressing challenges once it comes into office?
The most urgent challenges, and there doesn't seem to be any doubt about that, is foreign policy, or at least issues that are foreign policy related, specifically dealing with the United States under Donald Trump, and specifically, obviously, making sure that on the one hand, Germany and the European Union stand firm on their principles, but on the other hand, that they still manage to have a working relationship with the Trump administration. And the importance of this is highlighted in the coalition agreement by the fact that the Conservatives will not only have the chancellery, but also, and this is untypical for coalition agreements, they will have the position of foreign minister as well. So this highlights the fact that foreign policy will play a significant role in the next few years with the new German government. But it goes beyond the United States. It goes beyond foreign policy as well. If you look at defense, if you look at infrastructure, Germany and the new German government plan to invest large amounts of money in increasing defense spending and also in increasing infrastructure development in the country, which was a problem that was highlighted by not only citizens, by previous governments as well. And when it comes to migration, the new German government has promised a much stricter approach to migration when it comes specifically to undocumented immigrants coming into the country. So those seem to be the highlights for the German government. However, the most urgent challenge will no doubt be foreign policy related and related specifically to the United States.
Well, you mentioned Donald Trump and relations with the U.S., and I'm asking, to what extent is Germany looking to strengthen relations with other parts of the world, for example, with Africa countries?
It is indeed looking beyond its, let's say, more traditional partners like the United States in order to foster stronger partnerships, both politically and economically, with other parts of the world. The coalition agreement specifically speaks of a new Africa strategy and says preparations should be made to deepen trade relations with African countries. And very specifically, the new German government aims to ratify economic partnership agreements with countries like Cote d'Ivoire, like Ghana, like Cameroon. But it goes beyond trade. The new government wants to strengthen its links to the African Union, and it has indicated that a particular focus will be to help to stabilize the Sahel region and the Horn of Africa, especially when it comes to terrorism, when it comes to migration. And beyond these goals, or behind these goals, there's a clear idea that Germany, alongside its European partners, wants to oppose a larger influence in Africa by countries such as Russia or China. And while all this may sound goal-oriented and a way to deepen, to strengthen ties, analysts have often pointed out in the past that it's a significant challenge for German governments to go beyond the goals and then exactly turn them into reality. German governments in the past, for instance, have also spoken of new strategies for Africa. So there will be considerable interest to see whether this new government actually turns these objectives into concrete measures on the ground.
Well, let's talk about China a bit. What does the new government plan when it comes to policy relating to China?
That's also an important topic because German authorities have often stressed in the past that China is at the same time a competitor, a partner, and a systemic rival. And these three elements seem to be at the heart of how the new German government actually plans to approach its ties towards China. The new German government under Friedrich Merz wants to cooperate with China when it comes to global challenges, the most evident of those being tackling climate change. But when it comes to trade, a commission will be set up here in Berlin to recommend measures where Germany could reduce risks. The key word used here is de-risking in terms of dependencies, in terms of vulnerabilities in the economic relationship. And there's also some criticism of China in the coalition agreement because it says that China's actions are bringing a systemic rivalry to the fore. And this systemic rivalry requires a coordinated response not only from within Germany, but also within the European Union. But again, as in the case of Germany's Africa policy, the agreement is mostly a document full of intentions, full of goals. And another matter altogether will be whether Germany actually manages to show this strength towards China.
And the German people themselves, their view of this government?
With skepticism, I would summarize it like that. If you judge by what polls have revealed before the agreement was signed and also since the agreement was signed. On the one hand, Germans do view it positively that a coalition agreement was reached and that it was reached in short time. Previous coalition agreements have lasted much longer in actually being firmed up and signed. So in this case, it was rather fast. But they don't necessarily believe that the German government, specifically under Friedrich Merz, will manage to achieve all those changes that have been mentioned in the coalition agreement in those 144 pages. So a lot of Germans are actually waiting to see what the approach will be specifically, because that was something else that the German government stressed. All these measures will be subject to financing, and the German economy is not in a good state. So it will depend to what extent the German government and the German economy improves. That will basically make the difference as to whether the new German government will be able to achieve its goals.
All right, Thomas Parrow from our partners DW in Berlin. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. And that will be our show for today. But we have more stories on myjoyonline.com. Mahama invites Sahel military leaders to ECOWAS summit, as according to the foreign minister, Kujeto Ablakwa. Mahama's incompetent government will fall in 2028. MPP vows come back. And of course, some other stories available on myjoyonline.com. And of course, Easter is just happening. We've got exciting programs coming your way. In the various malls, we have Joy at the mall. Our sister station at Adom FM is in Kwao. Love FM is hosting the family party in the park. You've got to go out and have an exciting Easter weekend. But whatever you are up to in the hours ahead, I hope is profitable. Whatever you are up to this weekend, I hope is profitable. My name is Elton Grobe. Have a good evening and have a good Easter. Take care.